The today's topic is the anti-arrhythmic drugs. So at the end of this class, you should be able to describe the normal electrophysiology of the heart as well as the different types of arrhythmias, and you should be able to classify the anti-arrhythmic drugs, and also you should be able to explain the importance and the mechanism of actions, the uses and adverse effects of individual drugs. And in the last, let us will see the summary of the anti-arrhythmic drugs. So this is one of the interesting topic, and also a little bit you require to pay attention to understand the concept of anti-arrhythmic drugs. So before going to the classification, let us look at the some of the normal mechanism that has been exhibited by the heart. So as you know that, heart is one of the important organ which is required for pumping the blood all through or across the body. So how it is done? This pumping action, which has been taken up by the heart, is mediated mainly through the electrophysiological system. So in the heart, there are some specialized cells which will be able to create some electrical impulses. That impulses will be transmitted or traveled through the cardiac muscle, and once the impulse reaches the cardiac muscle will contract, and that leads to the contraction of the atrium as well as the ventricle, leading to the pumping of the blood across the body. So with respect to the pumping activity and the conduction system, you need to know some important five elements which are involved in the cardiac conduction system. So these are the sinoatrial node, SA node, atrioventricular node, AV node, bundle of S, bundle branches, and Purkinje fibers. So this is the SA node, and this is the AV node, and this color, that is blue color, is the bundle of S, and the purple color is the bundle of branches, and in the green is the Purkinje fibers. So let us see how these elements will help in cardiac conduction. So this is very, very important to understand the mechanism of action of antiarrhythmic agents. So here you can see that whenever there is a normal electrical signals are initiated, so usually the signal or the impulse will be generated by the SA node first, following the generation of the signals. So those signals which are generated from the SA node will be travel towards the atria, so that atria can contract. So once the atria contracts, so it will be able to push the blood into the ventricles, push the blood into the ventricles. So remember, the SA node will initiate the signal. So whatever the impulse which are generated will be taken up by the atria, and that impulses which are received by atria will help in pushing the blood into the ventricles. So following that, so after that, once the electrical signals arrives at the AV node, so there is a brief delay in the conduction of the signals to the bundle of S. So why there is a brief delay in the conduction of the impulse means, so this delay will help in this will provide a sufficient time for the atrium to pump all the blood into the ventricles. So once after reaching the AV node, the signal will be passed on to the bundle of S. From the bundle of S, it will be passed on to the bundle branches, and finally into the Purkinje fibers. And as you know, the Purkinje fibers will spread the impulse to the myocardial cells, which are the contractile cells. and that leads to contraction of the ventricles leading to pumping of blood. So from the right ventricle, the blood will be pumped into lungs, and from the left ventricle, the blood will be pumped into rest of the body. So here you can see that you should remember that to understand the antiarrhythmic drugs, so you should compare the SA nodal signals or the conduction system with the ECG, so that you'll be able to correlate the conduction system with the ECG findings. So here you can see that so P wave will corresponds here the P wave in the ECG. So ECG will record the whole of the ventricular activity. So later we'll see the membrane potential action, which is mediated by the pacemaker cells as well as the myocardial cells, which will be recording only with respect to the single cells. So here the ECG is with respect to the whole activity that is taking place in the ventricles. So here the impulse which are generating from the SA node and which will be passed on to the atria, so that atria can contract. So this will be represented on the ECG by P wave. And once the signal or the impulse travels towards the AV node, so that activity which allows the sufficient filling of blood from atrium to the ventricle, it is denoted by the gap between the P and Q. Here you can see the red color, so that represent the impulse which will be conducted to the AV node. So later you can see that once the signal is passed on to the bundle of branches, it will be represented by the Q wave in the ECG. And the RS complex will represent to the top the impulse which will be received by the Purkinje fiber. So you can see that this is the RS wave, which will be mimicking the action of the Purkinje fibers. And T wave represents the repolarization phase. So T wave will represent the recovery of the ventricles. That means to say there will be repolarization. So this phase will be a depolarization phase, that is the PQRS, and T represent the repolarization phase. So in the myocardium also, you can see that in the diagrammatic representation, how the waves will be generated based on the impulse which are generated in the conduction system. So SA node P, Q wave represents the AV nodal activity, and RS wave will represent the Purkinje fiber activity, which will lead to contraction of the myocardium. That is a contraction of the ventricular myocardium. So having this in background, let us see the two types of cardiac cells which will help you in understanding the antiarrhythmic drugs. So that in the cardiac cells, you have got two types of cells. So remember, so there is a contractile cells and there is a conducting cells. So remember, so these contracting cells are responsible for the contraction of the heart, contraction of the myocardium. So how this contraction takes place? So these contractile cells or the myocytes, the cardiac myocytes will receive the impulse that will be generated from the SA node, and once this impulse stimulates this contractile cells, these contractile cells will help in increasing the force of contraction of the heart. Thereby there will be ventricular contraction, thereby there will be ejection of the blood and the blood will be passed on to the rest of the body. Whereas the one more important cardiac cell is the conducting cells. So they are called as conducting cells. They are nothing but the cells of SA node. Cells of SA node, as you know, it is also called as a pacemaker because it will generate the impulse. It will initiate the impulse generation, which is required for controlling the contraction of this contractile cells. So this will send the electrical impulses, and that will be taken up by the contractile cell to contract the myocardium. And also you should remember that the membrane potential which is required to generate a required threshold potential so that it can produce the impulses from the SA node is different from that of the threshold potential that is required to produce a contraction in the contractile cells. So here you can see that this SA nodal activity, so these are called as the autoarrhythmic cells. Apart from SA node, even the AV node, bundle of S and Purkinje fibers are having ability to initiate the impulses if there is any defunctioning or if there is any fault in the SA nodal impulse generation. In such circumstances, the AV node or the bundle of S and Purkinje fiber will take up the action. So here you can see the membrane potential, the diagram. So this will be dealt in detail in the upcoming slide. So as you know that the conducting cells, so once they reach the threshold, so basically they will be in resting phase. So once it reaches the threshold, so it will be producing the impulses so that it can transfer the impulses across the myocardial cells to produce contraction. So among the conducting cells which will be able to generate the impulses, so the fastest threshold potential that will be reached by this conducting system will be shown by the SA node compared with the other conducting cells. So here you can see that the natural pacemaker in the heart is the SA node. So SA node is called as the pacemaker, and rest of the AV node or the bundle of S and the Purkinje fibers, which can also act as a alternative to the SA node. So only it will function whenever there is a inactivity or malfunctioning of the SA nodal impulse generation. So this will take up the action, and that's why they are called as latent pacemakers. So usually in normally, so this latent pacemaker activity by AV node, bundle of S and Purkinje fibers will be inhibited. So having seen the specialized cell, let us see the membrane potential, how they helps in the impulse propagation as well as the action potential generation. So this graph is a representation for the membrane potential in the pacemaker cells. So this graph will represent the membrane potential as well as the action potential generation with respect to the contractile cells, that is in the cardiac myocytes. So here you can see that, so the resting membrane potential is at minus 60. So this graph represent the x and y axis. So y axis represents the millivoltage and x axis represents the time in milliseconds. So the resting membrane potential in the pacemaker cells will be minus 60 millivolts. And once before going to that, so you should remember that as you know that heart has got two types of specialized cells. One is the conducting cells, and one more is the contractile cells. So usually around the these cells there will be electrolyte fluid. This helps in maintenance of the influx as well as the efflux of the ions, which will helps in generation of the action potential. So here you can see that the main ions which are involved in the maintenance of the membrane potential as well as in generation of the threshold which is required to generate a proper action potential will be helped by sodium, calcium as well as the potassium ions. So with respect to the pacemaker cells, the resting membrane potential will be 60 millivolt. So once So there will be, first there will be influx, or this is the membrane, this is the membrane. Across the membrane, so there will be influx as well as efflux of the ions. So initially what will happen is there will be influx of the sodium ions, so this will lead to, this will be a slow sodium ion channel. So opening of this sodium ion channel will lead to influx of the sodium ions, that will lead to gradual buildup of the action potential. So once it reaches the threshold, so here the threshold point to generate action potential is the minus 40 millivolt. So as the sodium moves in, the negativity in the charges will be decreased, and once it reaches the threshold potential, so there will be opening up of the calcium channel. So the calcium will enter into the pacemaker cells, leading to the rapid movement of the action potential. So you can see that there is a graph which is moving towards the upper hand. So you can see that it reaches to extent of plus 10 millivolt. So this activity before the generation of the action potential is the phase 4 activity, and whereas the after reaching the threshold, the action potential which is generated, that helps in the increasing the impulse that will be carried along the atrium as well as the ventricle, will be mediated by the calcium ions. So this is the phase 0. Following that, so there is a phase 3 where there will be a, so this phase, this is the depolarization phase, this is the depolarization phase. So phase 0, yeah, phase 4 as well as phase 0 will be depolarization phase, where the phase 4 is very slow, whereas phase 0 in the pacemaker cell is very fast. So when come to phase 3, which is mediated mainly by the potassium, so here the potassium efflux takes place, so causing repolarization, and the pacemaker cell comes to the resting membrane potential after the efflux of the potassium. So here the type of calcium which is involved in the influx is the L type of calcium channel. So this is about the, so here you can see that you are only seeing the phase 4, phase 0 and phase 3. Whereas phase 1 and phase 2 activity will also be seen, but they are not, you will not be able to recognize the phase 1 and phase 2 representation. So phase 1 and phase 2 will be merged along with the phase 3 activity in case of pacemaker cell. Whereas in case of the myocardial cells or the contractile cells, you'll be able to recognize all the 4 phases, that is all the 5 phases, that is the phase 4, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So all these phases can be well recognized in case of the contractile cells. So here you can see that the threshold which is required to generate the action potential in the contractile cells will be minus 90 millivolt, and once there is an opening up of the sodium channel, so there will be influx of the sodium channel, which leads to the, here the fast type of sodium channels will be opened, so leading to the rapid depolarization, which is represented by phase 0. So once it reaches the highest threshold, that is 40 millivolt, so there is a sudden or a slight decrease in the graph. Here you can notice after phase 0. So this represent the potassium efflux. At the same time, there will be opening up of the slow type of calcium channels. So L type of calcium channels will be opened. So that leads to the influx of calcium. At the same time, along with the calcium, the potassium will be removed. So this will help in maintenance of the ionic balance, which is shown by the plateau phase. This is the plateau phase. This will be represented by phase 2. Whereas in case of phase 3 again, so this is the repolarization phase, where there will be efflux of the potassium. So this is represented by phase 3. There will be rapid repolarization taking place with the opening up of the potassium channels. Again, it will reaches the resting membrane potential, and again when the impulse pass on to the next cardiac cell, the same amplitude you can make out with respect to the depolarization plateau phase and the repolarization phase. So having these in background, let us see what do you understand by arrhythmia. So the definition of arrhythmia goes like this. If there is any deviation in the heart in the generation of rhythm, it leads to arrhythmia. That means to say, so if there is a deviation of the conduction or the contractile response with respect to the functioning of the heart, that leads to the development of abnormal rhythm or abnormal contraction, will lead to condition called as arrhythmia. So anything that deviates from the normal rhythm, which which generates the abnormal rhythm leading to the abnormal contractility, will be called as arrhythmia. So as you know that the normal rhythm which is present in the heart will be between 60 to 100 beats per minute. If the beats per minute decreases below 60, it is called as bradyarrhythmia. If the beat increases above 100, it is called as tachyarrhythmia. So in day-to-day clinical practice, the tachyarrhythmias are very, very important. So tachyarrhythmias are much more common than the bradyarrhythmias. So let us see what are the how the tachyarrhythmias can occur. So there are three major mechanism by which the tachyarrhythmias can occur. So here you can see that tachyarrhythmia can be due to abnormal automaticity. As we have learned that the autoarrhythmic potential is only mediated by the pacemaker as well as the latent pacemakers. So here you can see that this is the action potential which has been generated by the pacemaker cells. So what happens in case of abnormal automaticity? So instead of producing the normal impulses, so here the impulse frequency has been increased. Impulse frequency has been increased. Usually, this is the representation in the red, that is the action potential, is the normal automaticity that will be maintained by the pacemaker cells, whereas the other color in the light black color, so that will represent the abnormal automaticity. So instead of generating the impulse at this interval, so impulse generation is already taken place after the repolarization of the myocardial pacemaker cells. So there is a early depolarization which is taking place in the pacemaker cell. So this is the abnormal automaticity. Again, this will lead to increase in the rhythm. So whereas the another mechanism is due to the triggered activity. So triggered activity can be seen with the myocytes in the cardiac muscles. So here you can see that early, either it can be due to the early depolarization. So as you remember, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4. Phase 0 represents the depolarization and phase 3 represents the repolarization. Here what is happening? So phase 0 is there, which is a depolarization, but again instead this is the normal rhythm. This is the normal rhythm or the action potential which is generated by the myocytes, which is in blue color. So the one which is represented by light black color, that will represent the early depolarization. Instead of going for the repolarization, the cells have opened up the sodium channel. So there is an influx of sodium channel here. So thereby it creating the early depolarization phase. So one more cause for this triggered activity is the delayed repolarization. So this are the two types which can trigger the myocardial cell activity. And one more type of mechanism that can lead to tachyarrhythmias or the re-entry phenomenon. Re-entry phenomenon where there are two types again re-entry: Wolff Parkinson White syndrome. Normally what happens, the impulse will be generated by the SA node that will be traveled to the AV node. From the AV node, bundle of this and bundle branches then to the Purkinje fibers. So usually the impulse once it reaches the Purkinje fibers after the ventricular contraction, the impulse will be terminated. So here what happens in this syndrome, the impulse will not be terminated here. Instead of it, through the alternative pathway, the impulse will be transmitted further or traveled further across the atrium so that it will mimics to that of the SA nodal impulse generation. Again, this circuit will continue and there will be increased abnormal activation of this pathway leading to the increased in the beats. So one more such mechanism is the atrioventricular node entry tachycardia, where usually the SA node will generate the impulses. So there are fast conducting system and slow pathways. So whenever the fast pathway, you should remember with respect to fast pathway, so the conduction will be very fast, and but the recovery is slow. Whereas with respect to slow pathway, the conduction will be slow, whereas the recovery will be very fast. So there is a small refractory period with respect to the slow pathway, whereas there will be a prolonged refractory period with respect to the fast pathway. So what happens when there is a impulse are generated by the SA node? Fast pathway will transmit the impulse very fast so that by the arrival of the slow impulses, it had been passed on to the ventricles. So this impulse will be traveled across the myocardial cells. So once this fast pathway transmit this impulse even across this slow pathway, the impulse which are generated along the slow pathway will be halted. So once it has created the impulse and these impulses are passed on to the myocyte. Again, there will be a development here the following the impulse generation. So there will be the fast pathway will be going for the refractory phase, and this is the one where there will be slow recovery. Although the slow impulses are halted, so as you know that it has got fast recovery, that means to say there is a slow or small refractory phase. So again, the one more once the one more SA node impulses are generated. So this impulse will be taken up by the slow pathway since the fast pathway is in refractory phase. So as this refractory phase diminishes, this slow pathway would have reached the myocyte, and also this would have entered this fast pathway. And again there will be the one more SA impulse will be generated, which will come across the fast pathway, and this circle will continue. This cycle circuit will continue, and there will be increased generation of the impulses, and the impulse which are passed on to the myocytes more will be more, and this circuit continues. So thereby it leading to increase in the rhythm of the heart. So these are the causes for tachyarrhythmias. So coming to the antiarrhythmic drugs, having all this background information, which will help you in understanding the mechanism of the antiarrhythmic drugs. So here you can see that. So antiarrhythmic drugs are classified by Vaughan Williams Singh classification. There are mainly 4 classes of drugs. So let us see these classes of drugs individually. So here you can see that these are the class 1 drugs. So you can make out that class 1 drugs are the one which will block the sodium activity, sodium channel. They will block the fast type of sodium channels. So these class 1 drugs usually bind to the sodium channel which are in inactivated state or in the activated state. So this drug will not bind to the sodium channel if they are in the resting state. Only they will bind if they are in the inactivated or the activated state. And also the mechanism of the sodium blockage activity will be more in either the rapid firing cells or in the inactivated cells, but not in the resting state of the channel. Only this will be acting whenever there is a rapid firing of the cells. So class 1, remember, they block the sodium channel. So thereby what happens? There will be no sodium entry into the cardiac cells. So as you know that once you block the sodium channel here, the phase 0 activity will be affected. So that means to say, so you are blocking the sodium influx, and what will happen to this slope? This slope will be reduced. This slope will be reduced. The depolarization phase will be slowed. So there will be a decrease in the depolarization activity. Here you can see that. So there will be slope that will be decreased. So in the subsequent slide, you will going to understand the mechanism with diagrammatic representation. So here you can see that again the class 1 is classified into class A, class 1A, class 1B, and class 1C. So there are three subtypes of class 1, class 1A, class 1B, and class 1C. Based why this classification, the sub classification is based on the ability of these each classes to inhibit the sodium channels. So these classes of drugs have got varied ability in blocking the sodium channels. So based on their strength to inhibit the sodium channel, they are classified into three subclasses. So here you can see that this is the class 1A. So the example are procainamide, quinidine, and disopyramide. So here you can see that these class 1A drugs will going to block the sodium channel. So thereby the depolarization phase, the phase 0 will be affected. Here you can see the slope before administration of the drug, and the dotted blue lines represent the after administration of the drug. So here you can see there is a decrease in the slope, and the time which is required. So here this is the x-axis represents the milliseconds, and y-axis represents the voltage. So with respect to x-axis, you can see that before administration of the drug, so the phase 0 is generating a slope and it's taking some time. But after administration of the drug, you can see that there is an increase in the time required to produce the same amount of amplitude of action potential. So there is an increase in the duration, so that there will be prolongation in the action potential duration. So to understand this, just I'll go to one more slide. So that will so here you can see that this the graphic representation of the action potential, this will be generated by one single myocyte, whereas the ECG is the recording that will be taking the signals from all of the ventricles. So here you can see that this is the phase 0 and this is the phase 3. So phase 0 is called as depolarization, and phase 3 is called as repolarization. So the duration from the beginning of this depolarization till the end of repolarization phase, it is called as action potential duration, and the same is represented on the ECG as the QT interval. So this represents the beginning of the depolarization, and this represents the end of the repolarization. One second. So the action potential duration will correspond to that of the QT interval in the ECG. So whereas you can see that the effective refractory period is a collection of phase 0, phase phase 1, as well as phase 2 and some part of the phase 3. So this is the effective refractory period. And whenever if there is any changes in the phase 0, this is the QRS complex. This is Q, this is R, and S, which is represented on the ECG. This QRS complex will change. So whenever there is the increase in the time required to produce this same amplitude of action potential. So as you saw in case of the class 1A drugs, so there is a decrease in the slope. So decrease in the slope means there was a increased time that is required to achieve the same level of action potential. That means to say this QRS complex will be widened. QRS complex will be widened. So remember, phase 0 will correspond to that of the QRS in the ECG, and phase 3, that is the repolarization phase, is represented by the T wave in the ECG. And action potential duration is the representation or the corresponding to the QT interval in the ECG. So keeping this in mind, we'll go back to the class 1A drugs. So this is the class 1A drugs. So here you can see that. So there is a widening of the QRS complex, and also you can see that the repolarization is also prolonged. So along with the sodium channel, please remember class 1A drugs will also have activity in blocking the potassium channels. So that's why you can see the repolarization phase is prolonged. So that means, so the action potential duration, that is beginning from the depolarization till the end of repolarization, represents the action potential. So the action potential duration will be increased, and also the effective refractive period will be increased with respect to the class 1A drugs. So here you can see class 1A drugs example: procainamide, quinidine, and disopyramide. So basically, they are used in the treatment of ventricular tachycardias and atrial fibrillation. So some of the side effects, the major side effects you should remember with respect to the quinidine, or they can cause blurred vision, headache, tinnitus. And whereas disopyramide, apart from blurred vision, they has got anticholinergic side effects also. So moving on to the class 1B drugs, the example are lidocaine and mexiletine. Here you can see that the ability to block the sodium channel by the class B are comparatively less when compared to that of the class 1A drugs. So here you can see there is a slight decrease in the slope. So blockage of these drugs will produce only a slight decrease in the slope. So that QRS complex will be widened, but here you see that, so there is no blockage of the potassium, and repolarization is occurring early. So that means to say the interval, the QT interval or the action potential duration is reduced in case of the class 1B drugs. So these are used as a class 1B drug. The major side effects with respect to lidocaine is they cause a CNS toxicity, and also it can precipitate the seizure in susceptible individuals. And apart from that, mexiletine causes the generalized side effects like nausea and vomiting. So So basically, these class of drugs are used in ventricular arrhythmias. So next, moving on to the class 1C drug. So that is the example of the flecainide and propofen. So here you can see that so there is a increased in this drug is affecting the phase 0 activity more when compared to the other two classes of drugs, that is compared to class 1A and 1B. Class 1C, the slope is more. That means they have got the ability to block the sodium channel more compared to 1A and 1B drugs. But the repolarization phase is similar to that of the normal conducting system. So there will be no change in the repolarization, but only change in the depolarization phase. So thereby it prolongs the QRS complex. But what happens to the action potential duration as well as the QT interval on the ECG will remain same. So these group of drugs are mainly indicated in case of refractory type of ventricular arrhythmia. If the patient is not responding to the other drugs, so you can go with these drugs. So that's why they are used in refractory conditions. And you can see that uh, these group of drugs can cause the dizziness and blurred vision and nausea and vomiting as a side effects. So apart from that, very important thing you should keep in your mind is, so of these four classes, the class 1 antiarrhythmic agent, they are the pro-arrhythmic agent. That means to say they have got ability to cause arrhythmia by themselves. So they are the potential antiarrhythmic drugs which can cause arrhythmia by themselves. So you should keep in mind. So class 1 antiarrhythmics has the ability to cause arrhythmia by themselves. Though they are antiarrhythmic agent, they can increase the conducting abnormality. So coming to the class 2 drugs, that is the class 2 antiarrhythmic drugs. So basically the class 2 antiarrhythmic drugs are the beta blockers, where it helps in suppression of the sympathetic innervation to the heart. So that once you inhibit the sympathetic, that will be blocking the sympathetic nervous system or the sympathetic effects of the autonomic nervous system. So what is the activity of sympathetic effect on the autonomic nervous system on the heart? As you know that in the heart, so there are beta 1 receptor. So once there is a stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, so there will be release of the catecholamines as well as the class 2 antiarrhythmic drugs are the beta blockers, which will reduce the heart rate by blocking the beta 1 receptors in the cardiac muscle. So once you reduce the heart rate, there will be decrease in the contractility also. So these drugs will mainly affect the pacemaker cells. Remember, class 1 drugs were mainly acting on the ventricular myocytes as well as the atrium, whereas the beta blocker, that is class 2, will be acting mainly on the pacemaker as well as the latent pacemaker cells. So the example you should remember is the propranolol, metoprolol, atenolol, esmolol. One important thing about the esmolol is the very short acting as well as one of the rapid acting drug. So it is used in case of emergency conditions like acute arrhythmia in the form of intravenous route. So next, moving on to the class 3 drugs, that is the class 3 antiarrhythmic drugs. So these group of drugs are the one which will going to block the potassium activity. Potassium channels will be blocked by the class 3 antiarrhythmic drugs. Examples are amiodarone, dronedarone, sotalol, dofetilide, and ibutilide. So here you can see that. So once you block the potassium channel, as you know, the potassium channel will helps in efflux of the potassium, and leads to the rapid repolarization. So by blocking the potassium channel, you are prolonging the repolarization. So that means you can see that what happens to the QRS complex will remain same, since there is no change in the phase 0. Only class 3 is affecting the phase 3 activity. So what happens to the action potential duration as well as the QT interval in the on the ECG? The QT interval and the action potential duration will be increased. So by increasing or prolonging the action potential and the QT interval, so the cardiac myocytes will get a time to respond to the increased myocardial activity due to any of the pathological conditions. So here you can see that basically they are used in the treatment of supraventricular tachycardias, ventricular tachyarrhythmias, atrial flutter, and atrial fibrillation. So with respect to amiodarone, among all these drugs, you need to remember some of the important aspect of the amiodarone. Along with the potassium channel blocking activity, this amiodarone will also block the sodium as well as the calcium channels, and also it can block alpha as well as the beta receptors, alpha as well as the beta receptor. So that's why you are seeing just a small decrease in the slope, which will be very difficult to recognize. And apart from that, with respect to amiodarone, please all of you remember that amiodarone side effects are quite very important. You can see that amiodarone produces side effects like pulmonary fibrosis, blue-green discoloration, neuropathy, hepatotoxicity, thyroid dysfunction. So either it can cause the hypothyroidism or the hyperthyroidism based on the patient response, and it can also produces the corneal micro deposits in the cornea. So basically, when you are injecting amiodarone, you should monitor the patient with the liver function test, with thyroid function test, with and pulmonary function test, and also you need to examine the the cornea also. And since it has got longer T off, even after stoppage of the amiodarone, some of the amiodarone content will remain in the tissue for months. So apart from that, you need to remember dronedarone, which is a derivative of amiodarone, which is less lipophilic, and it is having shorter T off, and it has got no iodine in it. So why there is a thyroid dysfunction with respect to amiodarone means it has got a iodine content in that. So next is the sotalol. Apart from potassium channel blocking activity, sotalol is also having the beta blocking activity. That means the sotalol has got class 3 as well as class 2 activity. And dofetilide and ibutilide are not much used. They can be used with precautions because again, these dofetilide and ibutilide are arrhythmogenic in nature. They are pro-arrhythmogenic. So coming to the class 4 drugs, the class 4 drugs mainly binds to the calcium channel and blocks the calcium channel activity. So again, remember uh, the class 2 and class 4 group of drugs will mainly act on the pacemaker cells, means to say it mainly acts on the SA node, AV node, bundle of S, Purkinje fibers, etc. Here we are mainly talking about the SA node. So calcium channel blocker, the examples are verapamil and diltiazem, which are the non-dihydropyridines. These drugs have very high affinity towards the cardiac muscle. So where they are going to block the calcium activity, that is phase 0 will be reduced. So that's why you can see that. So this is the rapid depolarization phase in the SA node. So by blocking the calcium, so you are reducing the slope. That means to say there is a increased in the uh, so there is a increased time that will be available to reach the same threshold of action potential once you are administering the calcium channel blockers. So here you can see that they are mainly used in the supraventricular tachycardia and atrial fibrillation. So apart from this, we need to remember that so there are other group of drugs or the miscellaneous group of drugs which can be used in the treatment of arrhythmia. So one such drug is the digoxin. So this you had learned as one of the inotropic agent which was used in the treatment of congestive heart failure. So the mechanism of action of these drug in producing anti arrhythmic effect is largely unknown. So the probable mechanism here could be digoxin mainly inhibit the sodium potassium pump, along with, as you know, that digoxin has got vagolytic action that will help in producing antiarrhythmic action. And apart from that, you have a adenosine, which mainly acts on the adenosine receptor, which is present in the heart, and that will inhibit the pacemaker current or the pacemaker impulse generation, and also it will inhibit the conduction velocity. And also it has been shown that magnesium sulfate has also got antiarrhythmic effect, but their mechanism of action are not clear. So these are the four major classes of drug you should remember. So before going to summary, let us see the what are all the drugs, how you can classify the antiarrhythmic drug based on the conditions. So this is the classification based on the this is the clinical classification where you can see that which are the drugs which are preferably used in case of supraventricular arrhythmias only. So they are adenosine. So adenosine is a drug of choice in case of supraventricular tachycardia. So if the patient is not responding to the adenosine, or if he is allergic, or if any contraindication for use of adenosine, you can go for verapamil, diltiazem, which was the class 4 drugs, and you have a dronedarone and the digoxin. And you can use the lidocaine and mexiletine only in case of ventricular arrhythmias, not in case of supraventricular, only in case of ventricular arrhythmias. For example, lidocaine and mexiletine, and these were the class 1 drugs. So for the treatment of both supraventricular and ventricular arrhythmias, you can use amiodarone, beta blockers like propranolol, sotalol, esmolol, and procainamide, disopyramide, quinidine, flecainide, and propofol. So almost the class 1 drug. These are the class 1 drugs, and beta blocker belong to the class 2 drugs. And amiodarone was the class 3 drugs, which was blocking the potassium channel. So apart from that, they have a choice of drug based on the specific types of arrhythmias also. So here you can see that atrial, in case of atrial extrasystole, usually the drug which can be given in case of it is the propranolol. If anything serious, you can go with the propranolol. So in case of paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, here you can see the adenosine is the first drug of choice or the preferred drug of choice. But orally, the drug of choice will be the verapamil. And in case of atrial fibrillation, so again the amiodarone is a drug of choice, and the other drugs which can be used are the sotalol, propofenone, amiodarone, etc. So here there is no specific drug which you should restrict an individual. So based on the signs and symptoms as well as based on the patient response, you can you can add these drug in combination also. So for atrial filter, you can see the propofenon, and if the to control the ventricular rate, again you can give propranolol, which is a beta blocker, verapamil, diltiazem, which are the calcium channel blocker, and amiodarone was the potassium channel blocker. So as we discussed, the one of the condition which was leading to tachyarrhythmias was the Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. So here you can use the propofenon, procainamide, which are class 1A drugs, are mainly preferred. So even for acute MI arrhythmias, you will going to prefer the lidocaine. No, you will going to prefer lidocaine, which is a class 1 drug. And remember, the class 1B drugs are preferred in case of post MI patient, but the class 1C drugs are contraindicated in case of post MI patient. As you saw that the class 1A drugs are pro-arrhythmogenic in nature, it can increase the risk of arrhythmias. So apart from that, in case of ventricular fibrillation, you can go with defibrillation, and drug therapy will include amiodarone IV or oral along with propranolol. Okay, actually, coming to the summary, so summary is basically antiarrhythmic drugs are the one which will going to suppress the abnormal rhythm of the heart, either by blocking some of the ions or by blocking the sympathetic effect, that is the sympathetic effect on the cardiac system. So as you know, you learned about the five classes. The five classes includes the miscellaneous group of drugs also. Here you can see the class 1 drugs will going to change the phase 0 activities, that is depolarizing activity, by blocking the sodium channels. So these are the group of drugs in the class 1, and you can see how they will respond to the sodium channel blocking activity in the cardiac myocytes. So this is the one. So first, class 1A drugs will be there will be increase in the QRS widening, as well as there will be increase in the QT interval, as well as the action potential duration. Whereas with respect to class 1B drug, this is the least class of drugs which can produce the sodium channel blocking activity. But also you can see that there is a decrease in the repolarization phase. There is a early repolarization with respect to 1B. And apart from that, 1C, there will be uh, they have got the higher strength to block the sodium channel, so thereby there is a more slope, which you can see with the class 1C drugs. So apart from that, please remember class 1A also has got potassium channel blocking activity along with the sodium channel. So that's why these class 1A drugs can also be used in tachyarrhythmias, which can cause the reentrant tachyarrhythmias, etc. So they are the one of the best drug which can be used in the case of treatment of reentrant tachyarrhythmias. So only thing you should be careful is the, since it prolongs the QT interval, there is an increased risk of torsidis point, that is tachycardia. Class 2 are the beta blockers. Mainly it reduces the heart rate and the conduction. And class 3 are the potassium channel blockers. Potassium channel blockers. Example were amiodarone. So you need to remember the very important side effect of amiodarone were the pulmonary fibrosis. It can cause thyroid dysfunction. It can cause hepatotoxicity, etc. And also remember, it also has got a risk of producing the arrhythmias, especially the dofetilide. And the class 4 drugs are the calcium channel blockers. There the examples are verapamil and diltiazem. So basically you should remember class 1 is sodium channel blockers, class 2 is beta blockers, class 3 is potassium channel blockers, and class 4 is calcium channel blockers. And remember, most of this calcium class 1 and class 3 drugs will mainly act on ventricles and the atrial muscles, whereas class 2 and class 4 will mainly act on the